kind of like a feeling where you see where the game is going, and I don't think it's a good direction. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I really want to talk today about modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck design and its flaws.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba, but it does contain the unstoppable
Dueling Wave. So glad to see each and every one of you today. That's why I was so glad to see you guys. I had my eyes closed as the video started. Got another banger of a video for you guys today. But before we get into that, let's just discuss today's sponsor. Again, absolutely nobody, but we will shout out the Discord. If you want to have fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh, come on down and give it a shot with us. We have our own custom Discord list aimed at having actual fun and interactivity. Who would have freaking thought that was a real thing? So we balance the game just for that purpose. You want to play tier elements? We have Kikalos unbanned. You want to play Zoo? We have Dryden at 3, Rapier at 3, Broad Bull at 1. You want to play grass decks? We've got grass at 3. You don't want to play against floodgate or negate monsters. We banned floodgates immediately as soon as we started this format, and we got rid of negate monsters like 6 months ago. If you want to have fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh, come test some fun decks, play your pet deck, come and join us in the Discord in the description down below. Anyway, back to the video. As I mentioned in the Discord shout out, we have our own ban list and Discord format. In this ban list and Discord format, there's so many different decks that are available for you to play. It's like you can play pretty much 10 to 20 really solid decks that are basically like tournament winning level deck. So what I've noticed, even as we have hit so many things in this format, we've been testing our format where we update the ban list pretty much once every month and a half. We've noticed that, you know, even if you do get rid of the negates, the floodgates, and all the problematic stuff with the game, every deck is still so damn powerful. Like, it's crazy. This is something that's undeniable and kind of unfortunate, but modern Yu-Gi-Oh decks just do so damn much. Sorry, that's actually an understatement of the year. You remember back in the day when you'd like, I'm not even talking about like 2002, I'm talking about like 2017, where you'd like play, or 2016, 15, whatever. Remember when Blue Eyes was meta? Try playing Blue Eyes now and just be like, what the hell is this? That's how much power creep has advanced in the last 6 to 7 years. You know what I mean? There's no more make something, your opponent goes on their turn, they play, they gets back to you, and after a span of like 4 to 6 turns, the game's decided through a few battle phases and whatnot. No, that's a distant memory. That's craziness. No one does that anymore. Now you have Labyrinth breakdancing all over you. Up, I just set a trap card from my hand on turn 0. Up, we're flipping it back up. Up, it's a quick play now. Oh my god, none of this matters. We keep going. Breakdance, breakdance, breakdance. You have Tear triggering off a Havness hand effect. Oh my god, I just milled 3. Oh my god, we just milled a Telements Rhino Heart. Now we're gonna mill another guy into the graveyard. Oh, look, I just fused on your turn, Kit. Oh my god, let's get a search. Oh my god, now we're gonna get Kit to the graveyard. Rukalos, all of a sudden we got Kaleido Heart. Oh my god, this is before I even drew for turn. We have Rescue Ace going, trigger off Impulse, summon this guy, draw 2 cards, discard 1 card, hitting you with the this effect, that effect. Oh my god, I'm summoning, I'm doing this. Then we have Snake Eyes with normal summon 1 dude, search this guy, play this guy, all of a sudden send this dude to the graveyard, summon big floater floats into more floaters, summon IP Masquerena, scale it, do this, do that, plus 12. You have Chicken Fire deck where you resolve 1 Promethean Princess, all of a sudden the Promethean Princess goes pop, all of a sudden it's like, say less, brother. You trigger off 800,000,505 and 6.7 explosions on their field, graveyard, hand, deck, mom's house, everywhere. You have a going second dragon deck where the moment it gets 1 attack through, all of a sudden 34,000 damage. 34,000 damage, bro. What the hell is going on? It's disgusting. I'm not trying to say this is my opinion of the game, and so therefore, because the game don't play like I like, game no good. It's more of that modern Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of like a binary, where it goes, okay, do you have a hand trap in your hand? No? Okay, sit there for 10 minutes, watch me go off, make my pseudo FTK board. Then you go. Do you have a board breaker? No. You have no chance of breaking a board with Engine. The only recent decks that could break boards with Engine are Tier 0 Tearlaments, because they would already have played as it before it even got to their turn. So technically they're breaking with Engine, but if they don't go off, like for example, if you don't have the Ishizu cards in your deck, let's say you're just milling your stuff and you set up a tier board, your opponent with tier would not be able to break your board easily because you're already set up so much. The Ishizu cards are kind of what allowed both players to play, even though it didn't allow any other deck to stay in the format. Not to get in a tangent about tier. Branded could do it somewhat as long as the opponent didn't have too many negates, but if your opponent did have negates, Branded could not play with Engine into board. So what ends up happening is there's no gameplay really going second. What ends up happening in Yu-Gi-Oh is you go first and you try to make your board to pseudo FTK your opponent so they cannot play. And then your opponent, you have to really get into a habit of enjoying this type of stuff where you have to go, okay, I like trying to solve the puzzle. Did my opponent leave any cracks in this board for me to break it? Probably not, but let's try anyway. And then I'd say at least 50% of the time, you're just FTK'd. The other 50% of the time, you can play into it, and if they misplay, you could theoretically steal a game. It's unfortunate, but in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you have mostly engine in your hand, or all engine in your hand, you just lose on the spot. Most decks just, they don't have the engine to play second. Like, no matter what deck you're running, you just don't have it. I'm sorry. And is that all Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be nowadays? Just a 2-turn game? You play, vomit everything. I try to break that. I'm either 1 or 0. I'm successful or I'm not. And if I am successful, I OTK you. If I'm not, I auto lose. That's terrible. That's a terrible win condition. Terrible gameplay loop. The gameplay loop is I'm going first, getting 12, going plus 12, setting up insane interactions, a lot of times negates too, and then it's just over. Just invalidate every card in your opponent's hand. That's the gameplay loop. And the biggest problem here is the modern card design, as I said at the beginning of this video. If you don't draw 2 hand traps, you're up Ish Creek without a paddle. Just no doubt. Like, I don't know. You guys can say in the comments, oh no, that's not it. You play bad. You're a bad player going second. I don't think I'm a bad player. I think I'm a pretty solid player. I've had success competitively, and I can go first, I can go second. I'm not talking about myself. None of the times I discuss these things is just like, oh my God, I'm talking exclusively about how I play the game or view the game. It's just kind of like a feeling where you see where the game is going, and I don't think it's a good direction. The alternative to having 2 hand traps to try to break board is to have a massive OP, maybe some of the most broken cards you've ever read in your side deck, board breakers that you side in, which are probably healthier than hand traps, but still, you side them in and then you go, boom, here you go, -5 for you, right? Because, like, let's say they have 5 backer or 5 monsters. You hit them with a lightning storm or Raigeki, or if you hit them with, like, evenly matched, you go, like, +7 sometimes. It's like, great, I won, but did I win because of my skill and my ability? Or did I just win because I have this one of the most broken cards ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, you know? Because what does it end up doing? Clear their board and then basically give you a turn 1, right? Because then you're functionally no battle phase, 5 cards because you use the evenly match, and then you get to make your board, right? And then you're hoping that you can set up enough so that they don't play on their turn, on turn 3, and then it'll kill you on the crack pad. But basically, like, it's once you kind of, I guess the way I can compare it to, not to go on a tangent, but you guys remember, if you guys have ever played, like, racing games back in the day, like Need for Speed, Midnight Club, whatever. All of those games, they had the same setup, right? Where it's the car is in the middle of your screen and you're racing, right? And it gives you the illusion that you're racing down the street. When in actuality, when you just back up a little bit and the illusion disappears, you notice that your car is basically on a treadmill in the middle of the screen, just going left and right, where the world is flying past you, right? It's not actually you driving through the world. It's an optical illusion in racing games that allow you to think, oh yeah, no, I'm racing. It's kind of like that in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like, oh yeah, I'm winning going second. Functionally, what like cards like Evenly or whatever do is like, okay, cool, I just basically reset your turn, reset the turn clock back so I get a turn 1. So if I drew the Evenly and you don't have a negate, well, guess what? I get turn 1 this duel, right? So it's basically like you went first twice. You start thinking about it that way. It's really like interesting. And when you win like that, did you even win? You just deleted the board. You know what I mean? Like, there was no interaction. It's like the equivalent of like a masterpiece. Like, people go, oh man, masterpiece is uninteractable. Kind of like evenly match is uninteractable too. The moment it's dropped, you're getting rid of all your stuff. So it's like, oh, I get to like interact as the evenly matched is dropped. It's like, that's cool. All your shit's getting still banished except for maybe one dude or one set card. But like I said, I'm not trying to crap on the game. I like the game. I like Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot. I wouldn't have a freaking channel about it if I didn't, you know? I wouldn't have a Discord that I run where me and a committee update a ban list so that we could have fun playing this game. Like, I wouldn't do that if I didn't like this game. So don't think like, oh man, he's crapping on this game, calling it bad and whatnot. No, that's not the goal here. The goal is just to talk about some of the problems that, if they're not addressed, this game could go into a really, really bad spiral. I just think ever since like Power of the Element, we've just had the worst power creep in this game's history. Like, the amount that it goes up, right? If you look at the amount of power creep that went from Dragon Rulers to Necros to ABC, right, Blue Eyes, you could argue that if Dragon Rulers run banned in those times, they might have been the best deck, you know, in those years. And can you say the same now? No, they're already at like 2 in our Discord format. They're all at 3 and they don't do anything, right? So you could see the amount of power that power creep has progressed. Since Power of the Elements, decks can't be designed anymore to just fit into the metagame somewhere and just be on par with what's released. No, they've got to be overtuned mess that's way too powerful, such as your Tier Elements, your Sprites, and now more recently Snake Eyes and Fiendsmith. Back in the day, we would have Tier 0 formats happen once every 2 to 4 whatnot years. Now we have Tier 0 formats, what feels like every year, right? Sometimes it feels like even more so. Like we might get a 2 Tier 0 formats this year, if that's the case, which we've had a Tier 0 format all year. Back in the day, at least, Tier 0 was somewhat addressed relatively quickly. Also, remember back in the day, if a card would be banned from a deck or like a few cards were limited, that deck would be devastated, right? Just like look at Necros, right? Or like Burning Abyss, or those cards that are like from like Duelist Alliance, like these decks that when they were hit, like ABCs, when they lost, like when they had just one Buster or one like these decks were devastated. We look at modern decks. Look at here. Ban kit, limit all the names, limit the Ishizu card, all to one. Deck was still, once Kashtira was phased out, and Kashtira was a hard counter to Tier. Once Kashtira was phased out, what happened? Boom. Tier is probably the most consistent performer in the Unchained Rescue 8 Tier format. Consistently. I know Unchained won YCS then, and Rescue Ace won a few, but Tier was every single one of those YCSs. Every single one of those YCSs, it was the second best deck consistently. Meaning that if the other decks are changing all around it, means Tier is the most consistent performer. It might have been the best deck in that format with everything still hit. Sprite gets Elf banned, no problem. Deck's still nasty. And it can be teched in as an engine where it's like maybe even more powerful. Tenpai just had their best starter limited, and they lost Pot of Prosperity to 1, and they're still probably going to be maybe the best or second best deck of this format. We have a habit of complaining about Konami's ban lists as of recently, maybe actually all time. I think that they're kind of like in a horrible position. They don't design the cards, right? The people that ban the cards don't design the cards. And so, plus the guys that are banning the cards also have the corporate overlords above them. They're in a terrible spot. You can't hit these decks. Like you have to straight up banhammer their best cards to just hope to do something. Like, okay, let's say they banned Flamberge and didn't touch Snake Eyes whatsoever. Would Snake Eyes Fire King would have been the best deck? Probably, right? Probably. Because that deck can make like 8 interactions. You know what I mean? So it's not just about the fact that, like, oh man, we got to hit this broken card. It's like, even if you do, all the other cards are so quality in an archetype that it's like hard to mitigate its power. My warning to the community as a succinct kind of conclusion to this video, and I pray that this doesn't happen because that would be awful, but at this rate, with the way Konami is just abusing power creep and not using the ban list, not using different ways of checking the power of this game, dude, I feel like we're in a really bad spot. Like, legit, this game could die. I know we've said this plenty of times, and I've always been like, yeah, right, dude. 900 people at a California YCS. This is a region, a state that has regularly 1,000 people regionals, 900 people YCS. Regular regionals at the end of the last format that were 300, 400 person regionals regularly, 100 people show up. Locals down by half or more percent-wise. Yes, this is anecdotal, but still, I think we're genuinely past the point of the singularity of uninteractive. Lord Almighty. Uninteractability. Ooh, let's go. We hit it. And what I mean by that, not to sound super posh, but like, or super Neil deGrasse Tyson-y. What I mean by that is we're past this point where the point of the game is to interact. Like a few years ago, I think we hit this point where the game's gotten, like I said earlier, I go first, lock you out of the game. You go for second, try to break my board, then lock me out of the game or OTK me, and back and forth. So game 1, I lock you out. Game 2, you lock me out. Game 3, I lock you out unless you drew a broken side card, right? Imagine if the side deck didn't exist for modern TCG. And if power creep continues to the point that it has right now, we're only going to get worse, right? Because right now, the best deck in the game can't play against the best deck in the game, because if the best deck in the game goes first, or at least last format, if the best deck in the game went first, the best deck in the game can't go into that board. It's too many interactions for the best deck in the game. In the mirror match, you can't play it. That's the problem. That's a huge problem. And on top of the bad turnout numbers because of this game's continued decline, dude, we have so many different options for other games. Magic, if you're a giant old nerd. Pokemon, if you're 12. One Piece, if you have so much free time that thousands of episodes seem like a worthwhile investment. Lorcana, if you're a girl. And Digimon, if you're one of 10 people in the world that plays Digimon. All of these games do better than Yu-Gi-Oh! Do not better in numbers, but they do better for their player base. They have prizing. They actually correspond with you about the ban list. They explain things. They seem, sure they all have their mistakes, but they seem like they care, right? But hey, that's like just my opinion, man. So what do you guys think about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design? Is it a problem? Are we going to get worse? Please let me know in the comments. Am I tripping? Also, while you're there, do not forget to like and subscribe to this channel, because It helps me hit my final form. But no, for real, I greatly appreciate it if you subscribe. Thank you again. Otherwise, check this video out because it's pretty sweet. And I'll see ya as always.